Tuhan ialah membaca, menuntut ilmu di seluruh budaya.
Inilah teladan sepanjang masa, gayakan hidup dengan membaca. Apalah nama andai tanpa ilmu, apalah mahkota bermatanya palsu. Tanpa membaca cacatlah minda, tanpa ilmu kemanalah kita. Jika ilmu penuh di dada, bila bergaya dengan membaca.
Dunia sempit menjadi luas, tempat kejayaan tiada terbatas. Negara yang kecil tinggi martabat, kerana ilmu negara berdaulat.
Mari kawan, kita membaca. Mari silakan timba ilmu dengan membaca. Inilah perjuangan, sambutlah seruan.
Jadikan
membaca gaya wawasan. Everybody take a book and read to gain knowledge. Everyone has to read. Let's reach out, open up your mind.
let's make reading
A lifestyle of wawasan. Mari kawan, kita membaca. Mari silakan timba ilmu dengan membaca. Inilah perjuangan, sambutlah seruan.
jadikan
Membaca gaya wawasan. Everybody take a book and read to gain knowledge. Everyone has to read. Let's reach out, open up your mind.
let's make reading
A lifestyle of wawasan. Mari kawan, kita membaca. Mari silakan timba ilmu dengan membaca. Inilah perjuangan, sambutlah seruan.
jadikan
Membaca gaya wawasan.
Pandai-pandai, halang buku-buku. Bacalah sampai pandai, buku-buku berbagai ilmu. Santang lemak manis, santang pelaku muda. Jangan anak menangis, kalau anak suruh membaca.
Lifestyle of wawasan. Mari kawan, kita membaca. Mari silakan timba ilmu dengan membaca. Inilah perjuangan, sambutlah seruan.
jadikan
Membaca gaya wawasan. Everybody take a book and read to gain knowledge. Everyone has to read. Let's reach out,
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the International Storytelling Festival Malaysia, ISFM 2021. On behalf of the National Library of Malaysia, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule to join us today. We do hope you enjoy this festival so far and also find this afternoon session interesting and useful. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier in the morning session, the International Storytelling Festival Malaysia 2021 is derived from the spirit to uphold the dignity of folklore, art, culture and heritage by providing a variety of exciting and interesting activities to participants. There are 5 main activities in this festival, which are first, corporate storytelling, second, tech on the go, with 4 agencies under Ministry of Tourism, Art and Culture Malaysia. Third, storytelling competition. Fourth, storytelling technique workshop. And last, storytelling session from 11 representative countries. Tech on the Go was conducted on 24th August, but all of you can still watch it on the National Library of Malaysia YouTube channel. We have also completed the first 3 storytelling technique workshop. Then tomorrow, we will have 12 storytelling sessions from 11 representative countries, which are United Kingdom, Thailand, Iran, Australia, Indonesia, Turkey, India, United States, South Korea, Japan, and Malaysia. And through this program, it is also hoped we are able to share the knowledge and experience of experts in related fields to enhance the participant knowledge and skill. Moving right along, we will start our last workshop, which is Science Storytelling Workshop. We are honored this afternoon to welcome a very special guest, Madam Usha Venkatraman from India. Before we start, it is a pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. Madam Usha Venkatraman is an award-winning international performance storyteller, educationist, and classical vocalist from Mumbai, India, who weave magic with her word. Her puppetry skill make her talent fascinating. She has performed in India and abroad as a featured storyteller. She is the founder and creative director of Mumbai Storyteller Society, MSS. With over 24 years of experience regaling young and old audience, she is well known and in demand for her unique style of infusing stories with music. She is a trained classical vocalist, puppeteers and independent researcher. Her passion include adapting traditional Indian stories and multicultural folktale to celebrate and keep alive their ancient wisdom for future generation and using stories to spread awareness. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our very special guest, Madam Usha Venkatraman.
Hello everybody, Usha Venkatraman from Mumbai, India. It's my pleasure to be part of the Malaysia International Storytelling Festival, June of 2021. Well, today I'm going to do a science storytelling workshop, how we can make science fun in the classroom. I've been working on this for quite a few years. And in fact, I also had a sci-fi festival in the year 2019 to explore science through stories. I believe in this workshop, I'll be joined by teachers, educators, as well as students. So let's make it fun and interactive, however interactive it can be over the virtual medium. You know, friends, the new educational buzzword is STEM or STEAM or stream education. Now, all over the world, to enhance the curriculum, we have STEM-based learning. STEM stood for science, technology, engineering, and math. Then art was added to it and was made and called STEAM. Then reading was added to it and it became STREAM. Basically, the growth of STEM education has outpaced technology. Now, the school curriculum cannot keep up And the onus of STEM education falls on storytellers like me. Now, I grew up like many of my generation, interpreting education in a linear form. The goal is to eliminate doubt and fear and become a divergent thinker. That's what I propose to do. So, STEAM storytelling does exactly this. Learning is a tricky concept to define. How do we maintain that childhood curiosity and the drive to ask questions? And whatever you call learning, education will come for free. So let's start with the basics, build curiosity, and then explore and grow. And that is the mantra of STEAM storytelling. I don't introduce science, I reintroduce it through STEAM storytelling. I encourage out of the box thinking. We participate, therefore we are. This is the scientist's perspective on storytelling. So, children, teachers, friends, what we are going to do today is how can we unravel the long line of truth? Science is based on facts, right? So, through a story, let us observe what is happening in a story. Through visual imagery, predict the outcomes on the basis of existing knowledge, evaluate what has taken place from different perspectives, and draw conclusions from the events as a whole. This is what science is all about. How does storytelling relate to science? By making a link, a connection between something that is already familiar with a new idea. Stories explain the scientific process or the scientific concepts by giving the scientific process a narrative, that is a story, and a character, giving it texture, something that you can hold on to, you can feel it, right? So, this is what we are planning to do today, explore the science concept through stories. So, how do we create that light bulb moment? The ah moment. All a storyteller does is to cast ripples. What happens when you tell a story? You stimulate the mind and thoughts through your story. Between stimulus and response, there is a space to choose, infinite opportunities to choose from. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, said, "In the response lies our freedom and growth." Thoughts become perceptions, perceptions become reality. Alter your thoughts, encourage diverse thinking. That's what science storytelling is all about, STEAM education. How do we choose to see the invisible message in the story? Now, this is for the teachers. Children's intelligence differs from an adult's in quality rather than in quantity. This means the children reason or think differently from adults and see the world in different ways. Children actively build up curiosity, also build up knowledge about the world. They are not passive creatures waiting for someone to fill their heads with knowledge. The best way to understand children's reasoning is to see things from their point of view. So, how do we see things from the children's point of view? Science is all about one's interest. So, let's pick up a subject today that you are interested in, find some material, and then follow your curiosity. So, science communication follows 4 principles. Start off at the right place. I would say start off with a story. Don't go far down the rabbit hole. That means don't go too much into researching. Clarity becomes accuracy. It beats accuracy. So you have to be very clear in your story. Explain why you think this story is cool. So let's begin the journey today. So let me start the session with a rap song. Let me bring in different um, textures to this STEAM workshop. Make it fun and interactive. Once upon a time, in a science classroom, I was asked, what is science? And I said, there's so much we don't know. But with science, our minds do grow. Yes, with science, our minds do grow. I have questions like, why do we eat food? Why no animals on the moon? What makes cheetahs fast and what makes turtles slow? Why does a body grow? I really don't know. I really don't know. With science, you can uncover mysteries, ask questions, run tests, and that's the recipe. With science, you can uncover mysteries, ask questions, run tests, and that's the recipe. Questions and experiments, questions and experiments, questions and experiments. That's what science is all about. That's what science is all about. You can be a scientist too. Run tests till you find the truth. You can be a scientist too. Just you try it. Run tests till you find the truth. So, my friends, that was a rap song about science. And that's what we are going to do today. So, let's now go to what is science? Science, the definition says it is a systematic study of the physical or material world through observation and experimentation. In short, observing, predicting, and evaluating. These are the three uh, things that we follow in science: observation, prediction, and evaluation. Science, by its own definition, doesn't give us meaning, my friends. It just provides us with facts. But our lives gain meaning when we tell our story. Now, let's see what the steps of the scientific method are. Make observation and ask questions. Make a hypothesis, that is, an educated guess. Do the experiment and record data. Look at your data and draw a conclusion. And the fifth is share what you have learned. Now, let me just define what storytelling is. Storytelling is narration, right? Narrative engages the mind. Stories give us texture, a rough surface to grasp. We are ready to wrestle with the problem as our intuitive and critical faculties hum to life when we listen to a story. Stories will offer insights. Now, you would ask me, why tell stories in a science class? A story can hook students' attention. Stories give students a mental organizer. Stories help change gears, change direction. Creative imagination hums to life and you rest the logical mind. Einstein said, if you want your child to be brilliant, tell them stories. And he added, if you want them to be more brilliant, a genius, then tell them more stories. It's elementary, my friends. Storytelling is definitely effective because you retain the information, and storytelling is a lot of fun. Right? Now, let me begin the session with a story, something for you to think about, and let me know if you get the answer correctly. Once a long, long time ago in Mexico, in the Mexican desert, a frog and a deer were the best of friends. And sometimes friends also get into arguments. So they did get into an argument. They decided to settle their differences with a bet. Usually that's what happens. So Frog said, 25 flies for the one who can see the first rays of the sun. Deer laughed and quickly agreed. I will look to the east. She rushed in. Deer knew the sun always rises in the east. You must look in some other direction, said the deer. Frog readily agreed. He sat quietly watching the highest mountain peak in the west, while the deer stared into darkness of the eastern plain. After hours and hours of waiting and watching, Frog suddenly yelled, Look, look, I see the first rays of the sun. Yes, I see the first rays and I win, said the frog. When Deer turned to look towards the west, she had to agree that Frog had indeed been the first to see the rays of the sun, and Frog had seen them by looking away from the sun, away from the east. Now, how could this be possible? Children, guess, think about it. That's something for you to think. So, this makes the workshop interactive. Come back with your answer and let's see whether you were right. Okay, welcome back. Let's start with physics. I know many of you are in primary school and you may not have physics as a subject, but I guess it would come under physical science or it could come under science. So I don't know how it works in Malaysia, but anyways, these are simple everyday concepts that happen in our daily life. You will realize that with the story that I'm about to tell you. Now, the story is about the moon and his two wives. Now, when I tell the story, we will come back and explore the science in that story. So, this story gives us a narrative and also gives us texture, right? Okay, so sit back and listen to the story. Like I said, STEAM education, STEM storytelling, my approach to it is the storyline approach. Well, you know Moon who lives up in the sky. Now, once, Moon visited his first wife. You see, the Moon had two wives. His first wife was a wonderful, wonderful gourmet cook. She would cook and he would eat. She would cook and he would eat. She would cook and he would eat. She would make delicious meals, savories and sweets, mouth-watering food. And Moon couldn't resist himself and he would eat and grow fatter and fatter and fatter till he couldn't eat any more. Then he staggered to visit his other wife, who happened to be a storyteller. Now, she was a wonderful storyteller, and she would weave magical tales, wonder tales, fairy tales, legends, myths, trickster tales, sometimes even science stories. She was such a wonderful storyteller, and the way she would weave stories, Moon would just sit down next to her and listen to her stories. He would just listen and forget to eat. He wouldn't eat at all. He would just listen to her beautiful stories and forget to eat. And he grew thinner, 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 and thinner till he became a crescent and disappeared all together. And then his stomach would growl, feed me, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And the moon would rush to his other wife, the gourmet cook. So this would happen continuously, and this would take 14 days for him to visit his gourmet wife, and then he would come back to visit his storyteller wife. Now, this story is a stepping stone to talk about the moon observation. So we can explore concepts like what is a solar month, lunar month, the phases of the moon. That is, we start with the new moon, then we start with the gibbous, then to a quarter, half, to a quarter, and then crescent, and then to a full moon, right? And then from a full moon, we talk about how it grows in size or decreases in size, right? When the moon visits his first wife, who happens to be a gourmet cook, he is a new moon. So he's waxing, he's growing. So we talk about waxing, waning, what is a crescent, what is half moon, what is a quarter moon, and what is gibbous, and what is a full moon. We can also explore what is a blue moon. That is, we know this phrase once in a blue moon. That is, it happens once in many months or days, right? I see Samir once in a blue moon in my class. Samir, what is keeping you away from attending the school? So you understand? So one can also learn language through our stories. We also learn about space, the sun, moon, the earth, the entire universe, the solar system. We can also learn about gravity and planets. We learn about night and day, orbits and rotations, constellations, and innovations in space exploration. If you happen to listen to my story, House of Sun and Moon, which I told at the Fence Festival, is a beautiful story, and you would understand all these names or the concepts that I just called out. Okay, so that is the story of the sun and the moon. Now let's see what else that we can explore through this story. And maybe I might have a quiz for you. Let me give you a few other options of how this story can be explored further by teachers. They may find this more interesting. But even children, you can join in the fun. Okay, so you can play a vocabulary game with your students because you're developing new vocabulary. So you're learning about words like moon, earth, lunar, gravity, crescent, quarter, gibbous, solar, phases, comet, sky path, moonbeams, rotation, revolution, waxing, waning, illuminate, right? And you also learn about small, full, new moon, what is blue moon, crescent, right? Now, these words, and you could also split them up into nouns, verbs, and adjectives in the language class. Now we can go to a little activity, just a few suggestions. So you could have fun activity in the class like the first day of the lunar month is the dash when the moon is not visible. That is, the first day of the lunar month is the dash when the moon is not visible. You have to fill in the gap. The moon appears to grow, or it dash each day from new moon to full moon. So what would you fill in the gap? So you could have little quiz like this, right? So you could retell the story, act it out in the class, and have lots of fun. You could even have a word search, like a crossword. You could put all the letters and find out full moon, crescent, gibbous, revolve, quarter. So these are the various activities. Or you could make your own story about the moon. Why the moon changes shape on a monthly basis. Why the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Why clouds move through the sky. You can talk about hurricanes and tornadoes. Why does it hail sometimes? Why tides rise and fall daily? Why birds sing in the morning? Why do frogs croak? So there is a lot of exploration that one can do with this story. I won't go much into detail because that would take a long, long time. You could also have a lunar calendar project in the classroom and also see how many days it takes for the moon to wax and wane. What is the distance from the sun? How are the planets, uh, you know, uh, which is closest to the sun and which is the furthest away from the sun? You could do a lot of research and have fun talking about the moon and the solar system. So that is about the moon. Now we come to the question. Remember, I told you the story about the frog and the deer. Remember that story? How the frog won the bet by seeing the first rays of the sun. How did he see the first rays of the sun? Let me tell you the answer. If you've guessed it, pat yourself on the back. The frog saw the sunlight reflecting off the peak of the mountain in the west, while deer was watching the lower plain in the east. Mountains, being higher, always catch the sun's rays first as the earth turns to face the sun. So that's how it was done. So, children, I hope you had fun listening to this story. And I just want to add a little bit because this is about reflection, another physics concept. Reflection occurs when a light ray hits a surface and bounces off it. The angle at which the ray hits the surface is equal to the angle at which it bounces off. If the surface is made very flat and smooth by polishing, all the light rays bounce off in the same direction. That's a little bit of trivia for you. So that was physics. I hope you enjoyed listening to the story about the moon and his two wives. Like I said, a story gives you texture. You can explore further the scientific concept. Now, I would request you all to stretch a bit, walk around the room, and come back. Maybe you would like to have a little toilet break, drink some water. If you're hungry, have a snack, and join me for the second part of the STEAM workshop, wherein I take you into the world of chemistry. So, welcome back, children and friends. I hope you had a much needed break, stretch. It's not good to watch Zoom or the computer for a long time. I too had a small mini break, drank some water, stretched a bit, walked around the room, and I've come back. And again, I'm going to start talking to you about materials. Now, this is a very interesting story. We call it chemistry, but all that you have to sit back and listen is the story. Okay, Now, chemistry, like I told you, chemistry, we are going to explore science that is directly linked to the story about materials and compounds and different things. How we're going to explore changing materials, how materials change shape, how what happens when you melt something, what happens when you heat something, right? See how they change shape. Chemistry, children, is not just limited to the scientist's laboratory and the beakers. It is also used to explain a story, right? And that's what we're going to do, explore. Science is all about questions and experiments, questions and experiments. That's what science is all about, right? Remember the rap song? I will sing it again at the end of this session. Now let's see what happens in this story. Now this story, I'm sure most of you know it, but the version that I like is a mixture of two versions. And this story is all about Mr. Bun, who goes on a road trip. And let's see what happens. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in faraway Russia, there lived a little old man and a little old woman. One day, the little old man turned to his wife and said, "My dear, I'd like something to eat, perhaps a bun." The old woman, she looked into her, box where she kept her, the flour, and she said, "Alas, we have no flour. I can't fix you a bun. My husband, something else perhaps?" But the husband was pretty adamant and he said, "Nonsense. Take your feather brush, scrape the sides of the flour bin, sweep the floor of the flour bin, and I'm sure you will get enough flour to fix me one bun." Now that's it. Now the wife, she did not have a choice, and she took her feather brush, she scraped the sides, and she swept the floor, and she got enough flour to mix or make one bun. So she added some butter to it. What else do you add when you start cooking? You add some sugar, you add some cream, and she mixed it all up nicely into a nice round ball and put it in the oven for it to bake. So it took some time. The bun rose up in the oven, and then when it was done, the old woman, she wore her gloves, took the bun out of the oven and rested it on the windowsill for it to cool, and the bun lay there. The bun got bored of just staying there. He wanted to go on a road trip. He wanted to explore. It wasn't COVID times, my friends. So he was free to explore. So he decided to roll off that windowsill down onto the bench below. And he rolled across the bench and fell onto the floor and rolled across the floor and ran as fast as he could out of the house, as his little legs could carry him. And the old man and the old woman said, "Come back, Mr. Bun, come back." And Mr. Bun stood up and began to sing. "Mr. Bun, I am Mr. Bun. I was scraped from the sides and swept from the floor of the flour bin. Kneaded with cream and in butter fried. I was put to cool on the windowsill, but I rolled and I rolled and I rolled and I rolled. I rolled away from grandma and from grandpa too. I'm not afraid to roll away from them." And he sang and he rolled and he rolled and he went to the countryside. The old woman shouted, "Come back, come back. I'm hungry," she said, because the old man was waiting for his bun. But they couldn't catch Mr. Bun. He ran and he ran till he came to a milkmaid's house, where the milkmaid was churning cream to make butter. If you know the old type traditional way of churning cream to make butter, I've seen my mother do it, and sometimes I too have helped her. So the milkmaid looked at the bun and said, "Oh, Mr. Bun, you look just delicious. You're so nice, round and brown. Come here, I have some cream left over, and you'll be very tasty with the big dollop of cream. I want to eat you up." And Mr. Bun stood there and said, "No, you cannot eat me." And he ran away singing that song as fast as his little legs could carry him. So the old woman and the milkmaid were chasing, running after Mr. Bun, but they couldn't catch him. Now, Mr. Bun ran and he ran down the hill, and he went whoopee until he came to a jam maker's house or his little workshop shed. And the jam maker was heating up blackberries in a big pot on the fire. The juice was thickening into a sticky jam. "Come in, Mr. Bun. You look nice and round and brown. Good enough for me to put some jam on you, and I can eat you. You'll be tasty with a big dollop of jam once the jam is set, because it needs to cool down and then set." "No, you can't eat me," cried Mr. Bun. And he ran as fast as he could away from the jam maker. And you know who was chasing him? The old man and the old woman and the milkmaid, and then the jam maker. He ran fast down the hill, up the hill, and finally reached a blacksmith's forge, his workshop. Now the blacksmith was heating up an iron rod in the fire to make horseshoe nails. He pumped the bellows to make the flames hot until the metal was soft. Come in, Mr. Bun. Oh, you're nice, round and brown, Mr. Bun. Ah, you'll be very tasty when you're all warmed up. I can warm you up. Let me finish. I've just finished making nails. I will put you on the fire till you're nice and warm and soft," said the blacksmith. "No, you can't eat me," said Mr. Bun. And he ran away from the blacksmith as fast as his legs could carry him. He rolled and he rolled and he rolled, and he was being chased by the little old man and the little old woman, the milkmaid, the jam maker, and now the blacksmith. Now it's getting pretty dark, and Mr. Bun was quite tired. He had traveled half the day on his road trip, and what an adventure it had been. And finally, he saw a nice brown fox who was sitting along the pathway. And Mr. Fox looked at Mr. Bun and said, "Ooh, Mr. Bun, ooh, Mr. Bun, you're so nice, round, brown. Oh, Mr. Bun, you're the best amongst all the buns." When Mr. Bun heard this, he said, "Ah, at last there's somebody here who recognizes true talent when he sees it." And he said, "Let me sing you a song." And Mr. Bun began to sing, "Mr. Bun, I am Mr. Bun." And Mr. Fox said, "Oh, Mr. Bun, you see, I'm an old fox. I'm hard of hearing. Could you perhaps jump up onto my nose and sing? I love the lyrics of your song. Did you write it yourself, Mr. Bun?" There was Mr. Fox praising and flattering Mr. Bun. And Mr. Bun felt so flattered and he said, "Of course I will. Let me jump up onto your nose." And Mr. Bun jumped up onto the fox's nose and began to sing. Mr. Bun, I am Mr. Bun. I was scraped from the sides and swept from the floor of the flour bin. Up! Mr. Bun never did finish his song, but Mr. Fox did finish. Mr. Bun and licked his lips. And with that, we come to the end of the story about Mr. Bun and his road trip. I'm sure this story reminds you of Mr. Pancake, right? Yes, but this is the version that I like. I heard this story from a wonderful storyteller, Rosie Cutrer, in the United States. Now, now this is for the teachers and the others who want to work with this story. How will you work with this story? First thing is you can learn the story and retell it. It's fun in the class. Act it out. Now you can deepen the story with activities such as these. Some of them I'm mentioning. You can explore in mime or dance the way different liquids and solids move. That'll be movement and storytelling. What fun! Reenact the way the different things are made. For example, how is a bun made? Butter, jam, and the nails. So that is, you see what happened with the milkmaid, with the jam maker, and the blacksmith. Role play this story, telling Mr. Fox about all the people who tried to eat up Mr. Bun. And while Mr. Fox is listening patiently, licking his lips. So, children, you can do a lot. Teachers, you can make a poem about the pancakes or about the bun. Now, how do you explore the science that is directly linked to the story? You can talk about how some materials can be squashed, twisted, or bent. Some materials melt when heated, then solidify when they are cooled. Some materials change permanently when they are heated. Some materials change in other ways. For example, when you're churning butter and you get cream. And how can we explore science that is indirectly linked to the story? You can describe the materials, you can compare the materials. So have fun in your classroom, children and teachers. You can have fun exploring the different concepts. And this is what science is all about. Remember, you can be a scientist too. Just you try it. You can be a scientist too. Run tests till you find the truth. Science is great fun. Let's make it engaging and fun in the classroom. Now, I request you all to take a break. Have a little water, do some stretch, join your hands, stretch up, take a deep breath in and a breath out, and twist to your right. Take a deep breath in and out, come back to the center. Twist to the left, take a deep breath in and out, come back to the center, bringing your hands down. Place them on the lap. Go take a walk. Maybe you would like to go out, look out of the window and hear the birds, right? Maybe play some music for some time and then drink some water. If you need to have a snack, go ahead, some fruits, some healthy fruits, and come back and let's continue. So take a break and I'll see you in some time. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the science workshop, the STEAM storytelling workshop. As you all know, I'm Usha Venkatraman. I'm a storyteller. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I'm passionate about science and storytelling, exploring science through stories. I'm not a science teacher, I'm a storyteller. So I hope you enjoyed the first two sessions about physics and chemistry. Now let's sit back and talk about biology, about plants, animals, and so many other things. That's what biology is all about. So I'm going to tell you a story which is another favorite of mine, The King's Seed. And I'm sure you've heard this story before. Now, this story will help us to explore what do you need to live and grow. Explore the science that is directly linked to the story. Now, first, let's listen to this story. There are so many stories, my friends, but I would like to talk about this story. So here it goes. The King's Seed. Long, 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 long ago, so long ago, I don't know how long ago, but a long time ago, you weren't there, I definitely wasn't there as well. There lived a king in a castle. Now he had servants who waited upon him, hand and foot. They waited on his hand and feet. He had a treasury full of gold and silver coins. But there was one thing the old king, did not have. He had no children. And he did not have youth on him. He was an old king. He had never married. He never had a wife and had no children of his own. No heir to inherit the castle and the kingdom. And this worried him. It really worried him. So his face was all wrinkled, lined, almost like a creased map of time. One morning, the king woke up and he decided that he will call all the expert men and women in the kingdom, and ask for their help. He called all the wise men and women and he said, please advise me. What should I do? So one of them said, oh, your majesty, you must have a running competition. A king must be fleet of foot, healthy and fit. A person who can cross the line, they will be worthy to be a king. That is, who can cross the finishing line first. And the second wise woman said, oh no, your majesty, a king must be wise and learned. You should hold a spelling bee competition. The person who can spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious backwards will be fit to be king. And a third man said, no, your majesty, a king must be a warrior. He must be able to protect his borders from enemy attack. Why? You should have a jousting competition. The knight who is last to fall. Now this is a sword fight. He should be declared the king. Well, the king listened to all his wise men and women, thanked them for their advice, and retired to his chamber. He slept on all the advice. And the next morning, the king woke up, took a pen and wrote in a parchment of paper a declaration and called his heralds, his messengers, his soldiers, his ministers, and he said, take this piece of message from me. Take it to every corner of the kingdom. And the heralds and the messengers did exactly as they were told. They went to different villages, distant towns in the kingdom, and they called out, hear ye, hear ye, you have a message from your king. The people gathered around them the heralds, and the messengers, because they were wondering what was this message from the king. So they dropped whatever they were doing, gathered in the center of the marketplace, and they heard the king's message, which read out like this. The king wishes to announce that he is looking for a new king. All those who wish to be a king should come to the castle in 2 days' time. Hear ye, hear ye, these are the words of your king. The messengers and the heralds called out. Well, all the people heard this message. They turned to each other and said, did you hear that? The king is going to choose a new king. That'll be my boy. You know, he is fit, hale, and hearty. And somebody said, no, it'll be my nephew. He is wise and learned. Everyone had something or the other to say. They thought their son, their brother, husband, uncle, father, or grandfather should become the king. So in 2 days' time, there were hundreds of people wanting to become the king, and they were all lined up outside the king's castle. There were people with great wheelbarrows full of books. There were dictionaries and encyclopedias. They had alphabets behind their names, letters, and they thought they should be the king and be chosen as the successor, as they were very wise and learned. And there were people with their buckets filled with gold and silver coins, and they thought they should be the king because they were very rich. And then there were people who wore fancy clothes, dressed up in their silks and satins, and they thought they should be chosen the king because they were well dressed and they looked good. And then there were knights dressed, mounted on horses, dressed in their warrior clothes, and they thought in their shining armor, carrying their swords and shields, and they thought they looked lean, mean, like killing machines, and they should be chosen as the king because they were tough and they were without any fear. And then there was a young boy named Jack. Did I tell you about Jack? Let me tell you. Now, Jack did not have any fancy clothes. The clothes he was wearing were the only clothes he owned, and they were torn and tattered and pretty ragged. And he certainly didn't have any gold or silver coins in his pocket. The only thing he had in his pocket was a dried crust of bread, which was actually yesterday's lunch. He didn't have any books. Jack had never been to a school. He did not know to read or write. He had never picked up a sword, so he didn't know about jousting. He was from a farming family, but he wanted to be a king nevertheless, just like everybody else. And so he waited outside the palace. And the king appeared on his balcony, thanked all the people for coming, and he said, I now wish to announce the terms of the competition, said the king. Each one of you will be given a seed. You will take it and look after it for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, you will return to the kingdom. When the people heard this, they turned to each other and said, seed? Did I hear the king call, or did he say seed? Yes, he said seed, said another. Everybody thought it was strange that the king was giving them a seed and asked them to nurture and take care of it for 6 months and bring it back. Anyway, it was the king's proclamation. He could do as he wished. So everybody, though they thought it strange, but they all wanted to be the king. So they lined up and took their turn. Each person was given a seed. And when Jack received his seed, he took it and ran all the way back home and called out, "Mom, Mom, guess, what are these? Mom?" And his mother looked at Jack and said, "Jack, what are these? Did you get the cow down? Did you graze them? Did you feed them?" "No, Mom, I've been mucking around." "Jack, have you been mucking around the countryside with your friends?" "No, Mom, I went to visit the king. I went to the king's castle." "Are you in trouble, Jack?" his mother asked in a worried tone. "No, ma'am. No, Mom. The king invited us all. Everybody. He is looking for a new king." "King Jack, Mom. Imagine that. I'm going to be King Jack." "Oh, Jack, we've never had a king in our family," said his mother. "What do you have to do to be a king?" "Oh, you see, Mom, the king has given me a seed. He's given everyone a seed. I've got mine here. Here, you can look for yourself. I have to look after it for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, I go back and the king might choose me. I've been thinking about it, Mom, and I know what I'll do. I'm going to put it under my pillow." "Your pillow?" his mother cried out. "Why would you want to put it under your pillow?" "It'll be safe there, Mom. Nobody will be able to pinch it." "Don't be silly, Jack. You got to grow the seed. It's not going to grow under the pillow, Jack. Now take it outside, find a nice pot, put some mud and give it something to drink. I mean, pour some water. Put it out in the sun, Jack, and then better get on with your chores. Go on, you're already late today." Well, Jack took his mother's advice. He went outside and he found a pot and he filled it with dirt, put the seed deep into the soil, poured water over it, and then placed it in the sunny place in the garden and let it lay there. And he went about finishing his chores. After he had finished his work, he raced back to the pot, looked at it, and guess what? It was empty. "Mom, there's nothing in the pot." And his mother said, "Jack, you've got to be patient. It takes time, Jack. You've been given 6 months. Now go inside and do all your schoolwork and your chores." And every day, Jack would finish his chores, go outside, look at that pot where he had planted the seed. He would pour water, he would talk to it, sing to it, and place it in different places in the garden where it got the best sunlight. A day passed, a week passed, a month passed, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months passed, and nothing had grown in the pot. Jack was sitting at his breakfast table one morning and eating his porridge, while he was feeling so sad when his mother, who was pretty excited, said, "Oh, Jack, today is the day the king is going to choose. He might choose you." Jack said, "I'm not going." "Why? What do you mean?" "I'm not going, Mom. Nothing's grown in my pot. If I go to the castle, everyone is going to laugh at me." "Oh, Jack, I've seen you look after that seed, taking care of it every day, talking to it, even singing to it." "Listen, Jack, the king asked you to take care of it every day, and you have taken care of it. So, and I've seen you do that. Now you did your best. Now put a smile on your face and you're going to the castle with that pot." You know, mothers have a way of getting their own way. No arguing with your mother. Right, children? So Jack took the pot and set out to the king's castle. He dragged his feet. He so did not want to go to the castle. But then as he came closer to the castle, he saw people carrying pots. They had things growing on them, vegetables, trees, flowers, herbs. Jack was so ashamed So he kind of tagged behind. He hugged his hand over the pot, covered it, covered the emptiness, and dragged his feet and slowly walked behind all those throngs of people. And they all reached the castle. He stood right back where he may be unnoticed by the king. And finally, the king appeared on his balcony and thanked all the people for coming. And he said, "Now I shall begin to judge the competition. All you have to do is hold your pot high above your head." So everybody held their pot above their head. The king looked at each and every pot. He stood before it, nodded. He looked on and on the whole day because there were so many people, thousands of people. He went from pot to pot. But as the day passed, the king's face grew longer and sadder. Until finally, he could see Jack right at the back standing. And he called out, "Boy, come here, you lad. Let me check your pot." "Show me your pot. What's in it?" asked the king. Jack shuffled his feet and stood before the king. "I can hardly see what's in the pot. Boy, remove your hands." And Jack, who had wrapped his arms around the pot, unwrapped his arms away. Reluctantly, he showed the king his pot. And the king looked down into the emptiness, and the king saw the pot was empty. He smiled. A big smile could be lit up his face, and he began to laugh. He laughed so loud that Jack hung his head down because he wasn't sure why the king was laughing. He thought the king was making fun of him. Jack wanted to disappear like a speck of dust. "What's your name, lad?" said the king. "My name is Jack," he said in a small, feeble voice. "From now on, your name shall be King Jack," announced the king. Me, your majesty," said Jack. "I don't want to be rude, but there's nothing growing in my pot." And the king said, 6 months back, Jack, I gave all of you the seeds. You know what I did before I gave it to you? I put them in a pot of water and put that pot of water over the fire, and I boiled them for 3 hours. Do you know what happens to a seed when you boil it, Jack? It kills it. All those seeds were dead. None of them should have grown into anything, boy. You're the only person here, Jack, with an empty pot. You are the only honest man amongst us. And it takes an honest man to be the king. And the people, they called out, "Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Long live King Jack! Long live King Jack!" And do you know what happened? The story goes that Jack and his mother came to live at the castle with the old king. The king taught Jack all he could, everything he knew. And one day, the king did die. But he died a happy man, knowing that Jack would rule his people honestly and wisely. And the king knew he had chosen well. So that was the story about the king's seed. This version is from a wonderful storyteller, Tanya Bhatt of New Zealand. And I love the way she tells this story. Thank you, Tanya. I hope you children loved that story. Now let's explore the science that's hidden in this story, right? Before that, let's talk about a seed is secretive, does not reveal itself. A seed is fruitful because 90% of the seeds end up into flowering plants. A seed is naked, that is, they hide themselves in cones, that is, in the layers. Seeds come in many sizes. A seed is adventurous. They can also travel 100 miles. They're drift seeds. They float in the air. A seed is inventive. A seed is generous, children. A seed coat keeps the seed warm. Some seeds are ancient, lie dormant for thousands of years. They sleep for thousands of years. A seed is thirsty and hungry. A seed is very clever, my friends. It seeks sunlight through the soil. A seed is sleepy only until it has found its space in the sun and had its breakfast and drink of water. Then the seed is wide awake. So, that was the story about the king's seed. Now, let's explore the science that is directly linked to this story. So, as teachers, you can explore with your students how seeds grow into plants. What plants need to grow and stay healthy. Naming parts of the plants and trees. How plants change over the seasons. Life cycles of plants as well as humans. Then you can talk about seeds and seasons. Investigate germination. You can plant seeds in the classroom. Identify trees. Label the parts of the plant. Talk about seasons, life cycles. Talk about seed dispersal, fruits and seeds, pollination, photosynthesis. And you can also have an art project. Paint pictures of the changing seasons. Use leaves to make prints or collages. Slice open a fruit and sketch what you can see inside. I would say an apple because it has a seed and a story. And you can also tell different stories. Make up your own stories. Act it out in the classroom. Play roles. Right? So you can have lots of fun exploring stories. And teachers can make the classroom fun. Like I said, you remember a story. A story can never be forgotten. So, children will never forget about seeds when you tell them a story, or you can find another story to share. So, I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed telling it. Now, let's take a little break while I drink some water, maybe a cup of coffee, and then we'll come back. Stretch. Take a walk around the room. If you need to have lunch or something, do that. And maybe sing a song. Maybe do some jumping hoops. Yes, something to get the energy back in your body and make those legs and hands move. Right? It's not very smart to sit in front of your computer or laptop. You need a break from it. So see you in some time. Hello. So I'm back again. Hope you had a short break, a refreshing break. So let's come back. Let's listen to more stories and explore the science behind those stories. So we finished physics, chemistry, biology, right? We had 3 stories. The first was about the moon and his 2 wives. The second was about Mr. Bun going on a road trip. And then about the king's seed. Now the 4th story is all about environment. So let's put the heading as environmental science. Let's talk about our environment. Very, very important today to talk about environment, children, right? Okay. This story will teach us ways to honor, support, and cooperate with nature. Storytelling is an art, a device, a gateway to take to the past and a portal to the future that supports the present. Let me rephrase it once again. Let me repeat it. Storytelling is an art, a device, a gateway, a portal, a window to the past, and a portal to the future that supports the present. Who is an ecologist? Is a doctor of the environment. So today, let's become eco-literate. I would like to start the session with a story. It's a favorite story of mine. Once there was an old man. He was so wise that people came to him from far and wide to seek his advice. One day, a couple of youngsters, teenagers, wanted to make fun and test the old man's wisdom. So they spoke amongst themselves and said, let's catch a bird and let's hold it. It was a small bird. Hold it in a hand and we'll go to the old man and ask him, what I hold in my hand today, is it live or is it dead? If the old man says it is alive, let's crush it to death and prove him wrong. But if he says it is dead, then we'll set it free. So the youngsters wanted to test the old man. So they caught a bird and they appeared before the wise master. And they said, "O master, the bird that we hold in our hand," they didn't say the bird, the thing that we hold in our hand, is it alive or is it dead? The master smiled at the youngsters, took some time, and then he said, "It's in your hands." So my friends, children, teachers, it is in our hands to support the environment. Let's become an ecologist, a doctor of the environment. There are many stories, children, but today I'm going to talk about one or two stories, right? So let's talk about a story which explores the concept of environment and how we can sustain it, how we can look after it, right? Looking after our environment, the food chains and the extinction, how we can take responsibility for the world around us, how our inconsiderate actions actually makes the extinction faster. So we're going to explore all this. But before that, this is for the teachers. The goal of sustainable development is to enable all people throughout the world to satisfy their basic needs and improve the quality of their lives without compromising the quality of life for future generations. So I would say, children, harvest wisely, take care of your land, do not pollute, respect all life, seek the balance in nature. Believe in yourself that you can make a difference. Ask yourself, what ought I to do? What is my responsibility towards the environment, towards Mother Earth? And then go about caring for the environment. Now, I would like to tell you one story, a favorite of mine, which is actually rewritten, retold by Dr. Margaret Reed MacDonald. You had Dr. Margaret Reed MacDonald in the Storytelling Festival. You must have listened to her stories. And I love this story that she has retold. It's a story from Estonia. Estonia is somewhere in Eastern Europe, very close to Russia. Now, one day, a young boy named Miku lived in a small house that was next to the woods or the forest. Now, Miku lived with his mother and father, and his village was very small. And Miku's job was to walk into the forest every day and gather the fallen branches. He had to gather firewood for his house. Now, one day, Miku thought that was a lot of trouble. He decided to chop down the first tree that he saw. So, Miku saw a nice birch tree and he raised his axe. He was holding an axe and he was about to chop that tree when suddenly the tree screamed out, "Miku, stop, stop, don't you cut me down." And Miku thought, what? Is this a talking tree? Is the tree talking to me? And he stopped in his tracks. And he asked, why shouldn't I chop you down, birch tree? And the birch tree replied, do you not know who I am? I am the birch tree. You use my bark to make baskets, Miku. The villagers use my bark to make baskets. And you use my twigs to make brooms. Don't cut me. I'm a useful tree, said the birch tree. Now Miku was quite reasonable. And he thought to himself, yes, the tree is right. Oh, you're right, said Miku. The birch tree is a very useful tree. I won't cut you after all, said Miku. No sooner had Miku said this, the tree whispered, thank you, Miku, but remember, you care for us and we'll care for you. And all the trees seemed to sway in the forest and they seemed to be whispering, you care for us and we'll care for you. You might want to repeat that. So Miku went deeper into the woods, into the forest. He still had to collect firewood for home. So he looked at the next tree that he came to and he said, this is a good enough tree for me to chop it. He raised his axe and was about to chop the tree. So you know what happened. The tree cried out, Miku, stop, don't cut me. Do you not know who I am? I am a cherry tree, Miku. I know you love cherry pies. If you cut me, there'll be no more pies for you, Miku, cried the cherry tree. You're right, said Miku, because he loved cherry pies. I won't cut you, cherry tree. And the tree whispered in reply, remember, Miku, thank you. If you care for us, we'll care for you. And it almost seemed all the trees in the forest swayed and moved their branches, and they seemed to be whispering, you care for us and we'll care for you. So Miku went on deeper into the forest. He still needed firewood to take back home, and he came across another tree. It was a broad leafy tree, and Miku thought this a perfect tree to chop. He raised his axe and was about to chop, and you know what happened. The tree too cried out, Miku, stop! Don't chop me! Do you not see who I am? I am the maple tree. You make maple syrup from my sap and maple sugar too. You don't want to cut me down, said the maple tree. And Miku thought, you're right, maple tree. I won't cut you. Thanks, Miku, whispered the maple tree. And you know what happened? All the trees in the forest swayed and whispered, you care for us and we'll care for you. Now Miku went through the forest, but every tree that he came across had a good reason why he should not cut it down. The pine tree said, Miku, we give you our pine cones for your fires. And the cedar said, we shelter the deer on winter nights. Walnut tree said, I give you walnuts. You don't want to cut me. And every tree had a reason, and it was useful. So Miku sat down on the forest floor and began to think. I think I shouldn't cut the trees. I'll just gather all the fallen branches and twigs on the forest floor and take it home for the fire. All these trees serve a purpose. It would be a mistake to cut them down, said Miku. No sooner had Miku uttered these words, suddenly a strange man jumped from behind the tree. Now I have to describe this strange man. The little man was, of course, a strange sight. He was wearing a coat made of birch bark. His hat was made of acorns, and his shoes were made of thistle down. Miku, said that strange forest creature, almost a green man. And he said, oh, Miku, Miku, you're such a good boy. You respect and care for my trees, said the little man. And I'm so happy that you care for my trees. I want to give you a special gift. I want to thank you, Miku, said the forest man, the green man. And he handed Miku a little wooden wand, a wooden stick. Whenever you need something from nature, just show this wand and ask all of the birds and the bees. They will be glad to help you, Miku, in return for your kindness to our trees in the forest. If you want honey, Miku, just point your wand towards the bees. If you want berries, show it to the birds. When you're ready to plow your field, show it to the moles. They'll do the job for you. All these creatures will help you, Miku. But remember, my friend, one thing. Remember, never use this wand to ask for something that goes against nature. Never ask for something that should be impossible. Never do that, said the green man. Miku took the little wand, the magic wand, and he went home, thanked the strange green man. I wonder if this really works, thought Miku. You know, we always doubt and we want to put it into practice to see if it works. So Miku went home, had his evening cup of tea while I take a sip of my coffee. He pointed his magic wand to the bees. And he said, bees, I would like to have some honey. Suddenly, the bees were swarming. Buzz. Yes, Miku, yes, Miku, we'll get it for you, we'll get it for you. They buzzed about and they flew away. Soon enough, the bees brought honey. They brought back a honeycomb that was dripping with honey. Thank you, bees, said Miku. He was so happy to have this delicious honey for dinner. The next day, Miku wanted to test. So he pointed his wand to the birds. He said, birds, a flock of birds came flying to Miku and said, hi, Miku, how can we help you? And Miku said, I would like to eat some berries today. So the birds flew in all directions, picked berries in their mouth. how much ever they could, and they dropped the berries into a bowl and said, "Here you go, Miku, berries for you." And Miku saw that and he was so happy, and he thanked all these birds for bringing the berries to him. Now, Miku's life became easy, my friends. Whenever he wanted something, all he had to do was point the little wand to the creatures in the forest, and they would help him out. In the spring, he took out the wand, he took it to the field, and he pointed to the moles and he said, "Moles, please plow my field." "We can do it, Miku," cried out all the moles. And the moles dug up and down until the field was plowed. Then Miku showed it to the ants and he said, "Ants, I have some seeds to sow. Can you do that?" "We can do it, Miku," cried the ants. The ants scurried about and sowed all the seeds. Miku's life was indeed easy. Miku became rich. His family became rich. Miku became lazy. Miku became proud and boastful. He got in the habit of giving orders. "Ma, bring me food. Pa, just get my bed ready for tonight." He had become a boastful boy, very proud. One day, in the middle of winter, when Miku happened to be out in the field, it was very cold. It gets cold in Estonia. It gets bitterly cold in winter. The sky was cloudy and grey. Miku hated the cold weather. Wouldn't you, my friends? I know Malaysia doesn't get cold. There's no snowfall, just like India. But we would love to have maybe up in the mountains. I don't know. In India, if you go north to Kashmir, to the mountains, definitely you can find snow in winter. But Miku stood there, right there in the field, in the middle of winter, and he was used to having his own way. He hated this cold, grey weather. Without thinking, he didn't remember the words of the green man. Without thinking, he held up his wand to the sky, and Miku commanded, "Sun, come out from behind that cloud and shine on me. I want to be hot, hot, hot." Hot sun in the middle of winter? You've got to be kidding me. That goes against the law of nature. Miku should never have spoken those words. Immediately the clouds parted and the sun began to shine. The sun rays burned down and Miku grew hot, hot, hotter. The sun's intense heat focused on Miku and zap! Miku was gone, evaporated, disappeared. Nothing was left of Miku, not even the magic wand. Since that day, my friends, the trees have never spoken to another human being. Though they say, if you walk through the woods and listen, if you're silent, you can still hear the trees whispering and swaying in the wind high up in the treetops. You care for us and we'll care for you. You care for us and we'll care for you. So this was the story about Miku and the trees. Now this story is an Estonian folk tale retold by Margaret Reed MacDonald in her book Earth Stories. I'm sure your library would have a copy of this book. And this story is a great story to explore environment and talk about how we can, as responsible citizens, help in saving our environment. How we can look after the environment. So remember, You have to harvest wisely, take care of your land, not to pollute, respect all life, and seek the balance in nature. You believe that you can make a difference, my friends, and always ask yourself, what ought I to do? The goal of sustainable development or sustainable storytelling is to make children aware and plant green ideas in your head. There are many stories, children, but today I will rest with this story, and I would encourage teachers, like I said, explore this story, enact this story. Maybe think of the trees and the plants that grow in the countryside of Malaysia. Yes, you could substitute the cherry tree, the birch tree, and the walnut tree and cedar for trees that grow in your region. I know Malaysia has some wonderful rainforests. I've been to Malaysia, so it's beautiful. So you could explore the forests around you, talk about the trees, and find out what kind of trees, how old they are, and how one can keep them safe. But remember, you care for the trees and they'll care for you. So this was about environmental storytelling, right? So let's take a break here, friends, and we'll come back to more science, how we can explore math through stories, how we can explore cyber safety through stories, how we can become web smart. So wait for me, and I will take you to math and storytelling and also about cyber safety. I hope you're enjoying yourself. You might want to take a break. If you have a garden or trees around your house, look around, try and identify the trees. Look at the trees, look at the birds, look at the nests, how trees are homes for so many birds, insects, animals, and you can explore the science behind this story. Hello, welcome back to Science Storytelling, and I'm Usha Venkatraman from Mumbai, India. It's my pleasure to be part of the Malaysia International Storytelling Festival and to conduct a workshop on science storytelling, exploring science through stories. Mathematics was never my favorite subject in school. I used to be petrified. But the idea of science storytelling is to remove the fear from our minds, because we're going to explore math concepts through a story. So are you ready to solve a few quiz in math? Okay, now get ready. Let me start with a question. As I was walking down the street, listen to me carefully. I know some of you are in the 5th or the 6th grade, so this is for the older children. As I was walking down the street, a woman with lots of children was coming towards me. I said to her, "Good day, ma'am. You must have about 20 children in all." She gave me an icy stare. She looked at me coldly and said, "If I had twice as many as I have got, and half as many again, I would have 20. Let me repeat that for you. If I had twice as many as I have got, and half as many again, I would have 20 children. So how many children did the woman have? Think about it and come up with the answer. And you can tell me or guess it till we finish the math problem. Okay. Now, the reason behind storytelling and mathematics is stories and mysteries have existed as long as there have been people to tell them and to question why. Just as long there have been heroes, heroines who succeed through their ability to solve puzzles. So there are different ways to exploring different approaches to finding the answers. So in the story that I'm about to tell you in some time, we'll see how King Vikram solves an unfathomable riddle. But before that, let me give you some information about math. Now, in the initial years, teachers must have experienced that how would they develop their child's natural abilities or potential to the fullest. I guess by stimulating their mind, encouraging them, and giving them the freedom to explore. These are very important qualities that one should possess as a facilitator, right? Now, today's workshop is all about scientific inquiry, comparing, questioning, making observations, describing and identifying, searching for cause and effect, trying experiments, and testing conclusions by making predictions about how the experiment has turned out. Now, when you've given a math problem, now wrapping a math problem in an engaging story involves the child's brain on multiple levels. So when you wrap up or when you put a math problem and make an interesting story about it, it stimulates the child's mind. Using story to explore concepts gives you other tools to connect with math, dramatization, puppetry, artwork, and musical motifs. So, let's play some games through this story. How we can explore math. Like in the initial years, you teachers must have taught about space and symbols were taught, right? Big, small, medium. If you use the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, ordering, arranging objects, classifying, grouping, sorting, all these are math concepts. Weighing and measuring offers a wealth of opportunities to explore and experience. Role of math in everyday life. You can play through games, just like puzzles. So I've asked you, how many children did the woman have? And the answer to that is 8. It's an algebraic equation. Work it out. If I had twice as many as I have got and half as many as I have, then it would total up to 20. That's what the woman said, right? Twice as many, 8 into 2, 16. And half as many as I have, half of 8 is 4. Then the total equals to 20. So that's how you arrive at the answer. Now, let's talk about the story that I'm about to tell you. Now, this story is about King Vikram, who solves an unfathomable task or an improbable task. This calls for out-of-box thinking. Children, math is all about insights and arguments. We are going to play a game of odds here, right? So the story goes like this. King Vikram ruled the kingdom of Ujjain in central India thousands of years ago. Now, King Vikram can be compared to King Arthur of England. King Vikram was very intelligent, very wise. Everyone praised him for his intellect and prized his intelligence and clarity of thought. In the neighboring kingdom to King Vikram, there lived a queen, and her name was Neelam. Now, Queen Neelam was quite jealous of King Vikram. She thought, why is King Vikram so popular? I'm equally intelligent. I too have clarity of thought. And she plotted and schemed. She was jealous. So she wanted to show King Vikram in a poor light. So what did she do? She planned a feast, a celebration. She decided to invite all the neighboring kingdoms, all the kings, the queens, the prince, and the princesses of the neighboring kingdom. And the chief guest was King Vikram. So the final D-Day dawned. The day of the feast dawned. Fantastic food was being cooked in the palace, sweets and savories, mouth-watering gulab jamuns and spicy samosas. Well, you can think of many other delicious lip-smacking food. Everything was cooked. All the guests arrived, and King Vikram too arrived in his special horse. So everyone was seated at the royal dining hall. Hundreds of guests. And King Vikram was at the head of the table next to Queen Neelam. Queen Neelam rubbed her hands with glee and looked at King Vikram and smirked and said, "Today, friends, we will see how clever, how intelligent King Vikram is." King Vikram was taken aback. How do you prove that you're intelligent? You just are. But King Vikram was indeed wise. So he looked at Queen Neelam. "Yes, Your Majesty, what would you have me do?" So Queen Neelam clapped her hands and said, "King Vikram, I have a task for you." And when she clapped her hands, her manservants brought in 2 children. They were identically dressed. They were of identical height, identical shape, and they looked just identical. They were dressed in rich brocade clothes. The hair was turbaned. Their eyes were kohl-lined, and they both looked absolutely same. And Queen Neelam said, "Here is the task for you, King Vikram. You have to guess which one of the 2 is a boy and which one is a girl. Now, mind you, you can't talk to them. So you have to guess who is the boy and who is the girl." King Vikram wondered what kind of a task was this. Both the children look identical. How am I going to guess who is a girl and who is a boy? But King Vikram was a parent himself. He had children of his own. And he was indeed known for his intelligence and clarity of thought. King Vikram thought for a while, and then he turned to Queen Neelam and said, "Your Majesty, can I have a paper and something to write on it?" So it was given to him, and King Vikram wrote a list of things. He said, "I would need all this." Queen Neelam looked at the list and she ordered her ministers to get them all. Everything was organized in the next room. King Vikram asked the 2 children who looked identical to accompany him to the next room, and laid out on the table was clay, plasticine. You know, the clay with which you can shape figures. That was there. There were also shaping instruments, you know, with which you can create some shapes. And there was water, there was soap, some moisturizer, and towels. So there was a lot of plasticine or clay or wet clay with which you can make shapes. And there were tools also, that is imprints of what one can create. So King Vikram beckoned the two children, asked them to come in, and said, "Create shapes from this." You know, children love creating shapes, playing with plasticine, squishing it, pummeling it, rolling it, and making some wonderful shapes. So that's what the two children did. They completed making shapes, washed their hands, wiped it clean, and stood at the table. King Vikram looked at the masterpieces, the figures that they had created. He admired them. And then he turned to Queen Neelam and said, "The one on the right is the girl, the one on the left is a boy." "Huh?" said Queen Neelam. She was completely taken aback. She knew who was the girl and who was the boy. So she turned to King Vikram and said, "How did you guess? How did you guess, Your Majesty? I know it was the shapes that they had made. You know, the girl, she made those delicate rose flowers with the delicate stem. And the boy, he created the tiger. I know how you guessed it." She ran behind King Vikram as he was on his way. He was getting ready to leave the palace and go back to his own kingdom. You see, he had finished taking the royal lunch. Everything was done. While the children were creating the shapes, King Vikram finished his lunch. And Queen Neelam ran in her pointed heels, and she ran on the tiled floor of the palace and said, "King Vikram, wait, wait, tell me, how did you guess?" King Vikram turned to Queen Neelam and said, "You have children of your own, Queen Neelam. I know for a fact you have daughter and sons. Surely it's easy." But Queen Neelam could not guess. She pulled at King Vikram's sleeve and said, "Tell me, tell me." "Oh, it's just a game of odds." But Queen Neelam wouldn't have any of it. She said, "Tell me, King, how did you guess?" King Vikram said, "It was easy. It was the way they washed their hands, not what they had created. The boy, when he went to wash his hands, he took the soap, lathered it, but then dipped his hand in the water and rubbed it on his dress. While the girl, she washed her hands with soap, rinsed her hands under the tap, and took some moisturizing cream and applied it in her hands, and then she toweled it dry. So Queen Neelam, it was not the shape that they created. It was the way they washed their hands. So that was the unfathomable task. I made it, simplified it for you children, because probability is a concept I don't know how many of you have studied. So let me define or explain what is probability. It is a game of odds. Probability is the practice of quantifying uncertainty. Probability is the math of sophisticated counting. It is expressed as the ratio of the number of likely outcomes divided by the total number of outcomes possible. In simple words, it's a game of odds. Like I said before, math is all about insights and arguments. Now, let me give you a simple puzzle. Imagine you have boarded a plane. There are only 10 rows. They are numbered from 1 to 10. And there are 6 seats per row, 3 on each side of the aisle. Remember, it's a small aircraft, only 10 rows and 6 seats per row. Seats are labeled A through F. A, B, C, D, E, F. Now, my first question is, how many seats are there in the plane? Your answer? 6 seats per row. There are 10 rows. 60 seats, right? What are your chances of sitting in row number 7? How many rows are there, children? There are 10 rows. What are your chances of sitting in row 7? So, it is 6 upon 60 or 1 upon 10. So, your odds are 1 upon 10. What are your chances of sitting in a window seat? There are 10 rows and both sides of the aisle. So, how many window seats are there? 20. So 20 upon the total number of seats, or it will be 1 upon 3. The odds are 1 upon 3. Like I said, probability of an event is great or small. It may not always be possible to tell the future, but probability can describe the likelihood of an event coming to pass. Right? You can play a game, you can flip a coin or toss a dice, and then you would like to guess whether it's head or tail. Right? So it's a game of chance. You can't tell the future, but you can try. Using odds and probability as your guide. So it's a game of chance, right? So that in a nutshell is about probability in math. So I won't go into complicated details. So I use the story of King Vikram, who solves. Here his odds are 50-50. It's either a girl or a boy. So his chances are actually very good. 1 upon 2, right? So that was about math. Did you enjoy this? I could have told you a simple story, but I thought this would be interesting. If you want, I can ask you one more riddle, right? Okay. This is the tale of the legs. Listen to this. 4 legs came into the room and takes 1 leg off 3 legs. 4 legs comes into the room, takes 1 leg off 3 legs. 2 legs come in, picks up the 3 legs and throws it at 5 legs. 4 legs drops 1 leg and runs away. What on earth is going on? Let me repeat it once again. The tale of legs. Even I get confused. 4 legs come into the room and takes 1 leg off 3 legs. 2 legs come in, pick up 3 legs and throws it at 5 legs. 4 legs drops 1 leg and runs away. What on earth is going on? Well, the answer is 4 legs is a dog. Comes in and takes a leg of meat. Takes 1 leg from an old-fashioned 3-legged stool. Right? A man or woman, 2 legs come in. They come in and throw the stool at the dog, pick up the 3 legs and throw it at 5 legs. The dog has 4 legs and he also has the leg of the bone. So 5 legs, right? He has the meat in his mouth and so becomes 5 legs. The dog drops the leg of meat and runs away. 4 legs drops 1 leg and runs away. So the dog drops the meat, the leg of the meat, and runs away. So that's another puzzle story for you. So have fun solving puzzles, answering questions, because it's great fun, children, right? This reminds me of another story. King Leopard wanted to choose a successor. He was very old, just like our king in the seed story. And he had nobody to take over the forest kingdom. So King Leopard was very wise. So he decided to have a challenge or a task. He called all the animals in the forest and said, listen to me. The task is you have to throw a spear up into the air and do a little dance. And before the spear falls to the ground, you must count from 1 to 10. The one who can finish counting 1 to 10 will be my successor. So all animals came, the biggest and the largest animals. The giraffe came, the elephant came, the rhinoceros came. All of them picked up the spear, threw it up into the air, and they tried to do a little jig, and they counted from 1 to 10. But before they could finish counting to 10, the spear would hit the ground. In the end, a little she deer, small one, she came prancing and said, can I have a try too? The leopard said, of course, and all the animals laughed at the deer because they thought the deer was a tiny thing. How is she going to throw the spear up and count to 10? So the deer came to the center of the ground. She took the spear, threw it up in the air, and did a beautiful deer dance, a jig. And before the spear fell to the ground, she had finished counting to 10. How do you think she did it? Now, this calls for an out of the box thinking. Think about it. Take a break. Walk around, have a sip of water, and come back, and I'll tell you the answer. Okay? See you in some time. Hello, welcome back. I hope you stretched and walked around the house, drank some water, or had something to eat. So, did you think about the story and how did deer count to 10 before the spear fell to the ground, while all the animals, other animals, had failed? Even giraffe had failed. Well, the answer is the deer did skip counting. She said 1, 5, and 10, or 5, 10. So she did skip counting and she soon reached 10. Leopard hadn't said how you must count. So you see, it's all about thinking divergently, thinking out of the box. Well, now that we've answered that question, let's come to the last part of the STEAM workshop, which I think is very, very important for all you children, because it's about cyber safety. Before I go into the story, which is a beautiful story about the cyber spying glass that I have here, the cyber spying glass by A.M. Marcus. I'm going to talk about how can you build your web smart? Yeah, how do you become smart while surfing the web? Learn to safely and productively use the internet for social and academic purpose. Right now, during this lockdown time, all students are working on their laptops or on the desktop, right? How to handle issues and how you use the internet is very important. You use the internet to play games, watch videos, chatting with friends, sending or reading emails, keeping up with the news and researching. And right now you're watching this workshop online. Internet, my children and friends, can be used in many fun and productive ways. Internet is a powerful global tool, and we have to be careful how we use it. It connects people allows us to share ideas, communicate, and access information. See, sitting in Mumbai in my house here, I can communicate, talk to you, and do the science workshop over the internet, right? Quickly across long distances. It's indeed a powerful resource. That's why we need internet safety. Keep two things in mind, children. Keep your computer safe and keep yourself safe too. How will you do that? Right? So keep certain things in mind. Username and password should be secure. Limiting who is able to see the information you post can keep you safe. There is a computer virus. It can steal information and destroy data. So save yourself from the computer virus. Protect yourself. Internet safety is smartphone safety too. Now you can surf the internet on your smartphone. Remember, if you see something online that makes you feel uncomfortable, tell a trusted adult right away. So let me ask you, have you got web smarts? Getting online is amazing. You will love it. First, get your web smart to 100%. You go online, right? And you're surfing the web like every night. That's cool. Make sure you think through where you go, what you do, and with who. Remember, where you go, what you do, and with who. Who. We'll come back to this a little later, and let me tell you a story about being web smart. Okay, this is the book I told you about, Cyber Spying Glass. So it was a Christmas morning, and 8-year-old Eric was super excited because Christmas was the time to receive gifts, exchange gifts. He knew that this year he would be getting big boy presents because he was turning 8. No more teddy bears and wooden blocks. He looked over at the pile of presents that were under the tree and noticed some of the gifts bore his name. When the family gathered around and sat down, he opened the gifts that were handed to him. As he opened each one, he felt a bit disappointed. Though he appreciated each gift he received, he was hoping for something besides just clothes and some simple toys. You know that feeling, right, children? Finally, only one thin present remained. It was from his parents. Eric opened it slowly, expecting another disappointment. Instead, Eric found a sleek new tablet inside the box. He was so excited and happy, he gave both his parents a big hug. He couldn't wait to turn it on. It was a tablet. You know what it is? A little computer which is easy to carry and handle, like an iPad. Since the presents were all opened, Eric sat down next to his older sister, Kelly. "Can you teach me, Kelly, how to use this?" asked Eric, because he didn't know how to operate the tablet. "Of course, little brother," she happily agreed and started to show him how to work the features of the tablet. Then, just as Eric was about to go online, his sister asked, "Wait, Eric, before you do that, do you want to learn how to be a detective?" Oh, I love detective stories, but here Eric loved playing detective games. A detective? he asked as he noticed the detective hat on his sister's head. She was wearing a detective helmet. Yes, said Kelly, only a detective will be able to tell what information on the internet is valuable and what is untrue, said his older sister. Very true, children. People lie on the internet? Asked Eric. They sure do, said Kelly. That's why every internet user needs to be a detective. Children, remember, you need to be a detective to see whether people are telling the truth or not, said his older sister, Kelly. As an internet user, you cannot believe everything that people tell you, and you must be careful with who you talk to, said Kelly. Wow, I had no idea. Is that why you're wearing that cool hat? Eric asked. Kelly nodded and suddenly realized that she had forgotten to give Eric the Christmas present that she had bought for him. So the present was a Sherlock Holmes detective case with the hat just like what Kelly was wearing and two magnifying glasses inside. He was excited. It was a detective kit, Sherlock Holmes detective kit with a detective helmet and two magnifying glass. We are going to do some detective work, said Kelly. Eric put on his hat and they each took a magnifying glass. Kelly put Eric's tablet on the floor and held her magnifying glass near the screen. Eric also did the same. Suddenly there were letters and numbers flying all over the place. As Eric looked up, a chat came on screen and messages began appearing in front of them. Lot of chat messages. So the message read like this. Cool kid. I live in Hawaii and my dad's a billionaire. Don't say anything bad about me or he'll send his ninjas after you. Cool Kid 3 wrote in the chat box. Eric imagined a big house on a tropical island of Hawaii and he said, wow, he must be a billionaire. Another chat room popped up. Rollerblade 11. My dad works at the biggest video game company in the world and he lets me play all the games. Wow, can I have some video games free? Wrote back Eric. No, said Rollerblader 11. After reading the next message, Eric imagined Rollerblader 11 with a bunch of video games to play. They must have awesome parents, Eric told Kelly. But how do we know that they are telling the truth about their father? Eric asked. Smart question. Kelly nodded. That's the point, little brother. Anyone can make stuff up on the internet. Point that magnifying glass on their usernames and let's take a closer look, said Kelly. Eric held his glass over Cool Kid 3's username. He saw a boy in ragged clothes in a small, dirty room with snow falling outside the window. He's not a billionaire, and nor is he living in a fancy house in Hawaii, Eric thought. He then pointed the magnifying glass, at Rollerblader 11's username. There were only a few video games on the shelf behind that boy. Kelly looked at Eric. See, they are not telling the truth. Then another chat popped up. It said, Kate 11. Are you a boy or a girl? The chat read. A girl, said Elephant 123. Another chat popped up. After reading the next chat message, both Eric and Kelly discovered with their magnifying glass that Elephant 23 was in fact a boy and not a girl. I'm 14 and I have big muscles, so don't mess with me, said another chat. And the magnifying glass revealed that Bare Hands was not telling the truth either with his claims of big muscles. So the chat room was filled with messages, you see, and both Kelly and Eric took their magnifying glass and looked closer and became detectives. And Eric asked his sister, why would someone pretend to be a kid? Some people do that because they want to trick or hurt children, Kelly explained. Eric was worried and asked, how can we know who's lying and who's telling the truth? Kelly put her hand on Eric's shoulder and said, now you're a detective, brother. If anything seems suspicious, you need to let mom or dad know about it. What kind of things are considered to be suspicious? Eric wanted to know. Well, said Kelly, if someone asks you for personal information or wants to meet with you, for instance, or if you are asked to keep a secret or someone says something is a surprise, in that case, brother, you should ask for help. Also, the most important thing to remember is not to give your private information to others. What kind of stuff is too private to say? Eric asked Kelly. Well, you never want to give your address or whole name or tell them where you go to school or where you play, replied his sister Kelly. So I need to really pay attention to clues in order to stay safe on the internet. Is that right? Asked Eric. Of course, exactly, brother. Even if you only suspect that someone might be lying or might want to hurt you, it is important to get mom or dad involved. Now let's take off our hats and go back home. Suddenly, both Kelly and Eric were back in their living room with the tablet in Eric's hands. Have fun, brother. Remember, put your detective hat on every time you go online, Kelly told him. Eric hugged his sister and thanked her. He was so happy that she had given him the tools to help him be safe on the internet. So this is the beautiful story, a terrific story that teaches children how to interact with the internet and be safe while having fun. So ask your school library to get a copy of this book, or they may already have this in the library collection. Now, children, like I said, remember, if you see something online that makes you feel uncomfortable, tell a trusted adult right away. Have you got web smarts? Getting online is amazing. You will love it. First, get your web smarts to 100%. You go online, right? And you're surfing the web like every night, sometimes during the day as well. That's cool. Make sure you think through where you go, what you do, and with who. So, I would like to tell you 10 productive ways to spend time on internet. Learn something new. Develop opinions and worldviews. Get organized. Update your personal life. Shop smart. Pick a cool new app. Get a virtual assistant. Take a world tour on your desktop. You can do that now, children, since all of us are in lockdown and we are staying at home in many parts of the world. Pick a hobby. You can do that online. Blog about your thoughts. Write about. Do some creative writing. And I have a note to parents also that online environment danger lurks. So it's up to the parents to check on their child's internet safety. Parents need to support and guide the children to navigate the potential dangers. It is the parents' job to place parental controls and when to ease up as the children grow and mature in their decision making skills. Handling strangers in virtual environment is not easy. It needs to be taught. Stories are a great way to share these life lessons. Right, children? Especially the story about the cyber spying class. Now, there is also cyber bullying, trolling, cyber stalking. I won't get into details, but you have to become web smart. You need to become safe when you use the internet. So with that, children, we come to the end of the science workshop. Today, let me recapitulate. We studied about physics, explored the world of physics, chemistry, biology, environmental science, math, and cyber safety through a story. Now, teachers, parents, and educators can definitely come up with stories that give texture and explain the scientific process with characters, right? And narrative so that you can identify. And then that opens a doorway to explore the scientific concept. Remember, once upon a time in a science classroom, I was asked what is science? And I said, there's so much I don't know, but with science, our minds do grow. Yes, with science, our minds do grow. I wonder, why do we eat food? Why no animals on the moon? What makes cheetahs fast? What makes turtles slow? Why does a body grow? I really don't know. I really don't know. But with science, you uncover mysteries, ask questions, run tests. That's the recipe. Yes, that's the recipe. Questions and experiments, questions and experiments. That's what science is all about. You can be a scientist too, just you try it. You can be a scientist too, run tests till you find the truth. Run tests till you find the truth. So children, with that, we come to the end of science and storytelling. It's been a pleasure that I could share what I believe is exploring science through stories. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful summer vacation and enjoy the storytelling festival that Malaysia has put together for you. And this is Usha Venkatraman from Mumbai, storyteller, the founder of Mumbai Storytellers Society, signing off. Namaste.
Thank you very much for an interesting workshop. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our afternoon session. I also would like to remind to all participants, please do not forget to submit the evaluation form. Thank you very much for your participation in this session. We do hope you enjoy and able to gain as much knowledge as possible. With that, on behalf of the National Library of Malaysia, we would like to extend our sincere appreciation and gratitude to all individuals and organizations for their kind support and cooperation toward the success of this festival. Do not forget our next session tomorrow at 9 a.m. There are 12 storytellers from 11 representative countries who will present for tomorrow's session. Thank you for watching and please stay tuned with us. Assalamualaikum.